You know, today for me is one of those days that I think we all have from time to time where you sit back and you think, man, did I slip into a parallel universe without knowing it? And the reason why I say this is because we got some pretty out of nowhere, but definitely huge news that Sony and Microsoft are partnering up. They are uniting. Yes, I will say it again. Sony and Microsoft are partnering up. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I'm going to read a little bit of an article here, and then I'm going to talk more about it and give my thoughts on it. So it says, Sony and Microsoft have been game industry competitors ever since Xbox went up against the PS2. But the two companies have just announced some cloud-centric collaboration in their future. A joint press release says that they will explore the use of current Microsoft Azure database-based solutions, data center-based solutions, I should say, for Sony's game and content streaming services. In simpler terms, Sony will soon use Microsoft's mastery of the cloud to make its games and entertainment streaming, like PlayStation Now and PlayStation Vue, presumably, work better. This isn't a merger, and this isn't Microsoft and Sony setting aside their competition in gaming, but it is a new collaboration between the two gaming giants, coming just a few months after Google announced it would be entering the gaming space with Google Stadia. That may be an unrelated development, of course, and business arrangements like these can be the result of years of discussion, but I wouldn't be surprised if Stadia moved up a few timetables. Sony has always been a leader in both entertainment and technology, and the collaboration we announced today builds on that history of innovation, Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella said in the press release. Our partnership brings the power of Azure and Azure AI to Sony to deliver new gaming and entertainment experience for customers. Though the release never mentions Xbox by name, Xbox boss Phil Spencer voiced his support for the partnership via Twitter. He said, excited about the opportunities ahead with Sony for us to pursue our mutual gaming ambitions and delight players around the world. The deal also extends to some areas of hardware development, including Sony-made sensors and semiconductors being put to use for Microsoft's cloud AI developments. That's a mouthful even after I summarized it from the full release, so I'm not surprised they led with the gaming bit. So I'm going to end the article here. I chose to read from this Games Radar article, which I will have linked down below because they did their best to try to crunch this up a little bit, because if you go read the official release, it's pretty long and there's a lot in there, but wow. Yeah, so this is it. This is Sony and Microsoft partnering, and as you can see here, this is really for the cloud. And there's going to be a lot of different takes from a lot of different types of people depending on where you sit, on where you stand. So I'll just give mine real quick. You know, there's nothing wrong with this. There really isn't. I actually think it's probably a good thing. You know, I see a lot of people saying, like, you know, oh, this is going to end the console wars and, you know, this is great. And it is great. It's awesome to see that Sony and Microsoft can actually have a partnership like this, knowing how, you know, in competition they are with one another. But we have to understand that this is a little bit different. Now, from my perspective, the reason why I can't really jump for joy at this is because what this ultimately feeds into is the supposed future that of gaming that you guys know, or most of you should know, that I'm against. And for those who don't know, that is the cloud gaming future. Now listen, I don't care how inevitable it may be. I don't care if this really is the actual future of gaming, and this is how 99.9% of people, you know, 10 years from now or 20 years from now, however long it may be, or maybe even less than that, if this is how they're going to consume their content when it comes to gaming, I don't care. Like, I don't care if it's the future. You know, maybe one day, I can say this, maybe one day in the distant future, when playing a game through the cloud is as simple, or as, I guess I should say, is as technically appealing to me as it would be if I was playing it on native hardware, then maybe. But even then, you know, when you talk about cloud gaming and you want to talk about ownership and owning your content and the content you buy, you want to feel like you have ownership over it. It's a whole thing. And so, like, I understand that people want to really jump for joy on this and make it seem like this is great. Like, Sony and Microsoft are going to merge and they're going to share games and they're going to do this and they're going to do that. And you need to understand, like, no, this is a business thing. Like, basically what's happening here is Sony had limited options when it comes to their pursuit of cloud. I'm not ignorant to the fact that, yes, Sony needs to continue to pursue the cloud. I've harped on how on cloud gaming on Google Stadia and even Microsoft's xCloud, and how I'm just not for this future. I'm not for it. If it wants to be there as an option, I'm for that. But when I see Google, especially, Google's made it very clear that they want the future to be 100% cloud streaming. Microsoft, I believe, if they had it their way. Now, don't get me wrong. I think if any company had it their way, they would, go this route. But Microsoft seems like they're willing to push it a little bit further. Now, I don't necessarily blame them 100% because they are a cloud company, which also makes complete sense as to why Sony would choose to partner with them here, right? But, so thinking about why Sony chose Microsoft, I think that the reason why it's so surprising is they had other options. The only option they didn't have was to not do anything. And the reason for that is because we see these big name players in the industry like Microsoft and Google and eventually others letting us know that, hey, cloud gaming is the future and we're going to pursue this, and this is a untapped, very lucrative market, and we want to be the first there. We want to gain that market leadership first. And Sony, they can't just sit idly by just in case this is the future and it is as lucrative as all these other companies are making it seem. They're going to want a piece of that pie. And, considering they're one of the leaders, if not the leader in the gaming world in a big way with PlayStation, they're going to have this as an option. Now, I still think that Sony is probably the last of the pack here, or the pack, I should say, not packed, but last of the pack that would actually embrace cloud gaming to the point where they see it as like the future, right? Because Sony is going to be continuing to rely heavily on the console. Now, so will Microsoft. And the thing that I like about this is I'm actually glad that Sony chose to go with Microsoft, even though they could have went with Amazon. They could have went with Google if they wanted, or they could have attempted, which it wouldn't have worked this way. They even admitted this, that they could have attempted to try to build their own infrastructure, but not only would that take a tremendous amount of time, it would also take a tremendous amount of money that I honestly don't think Sony would have to invest in that, in a timely manner anyway. So it just makes more sense for them to go with one of these three, and they chose Microsoft. And the reason why I'm glad for this is because this is almost like, if you think about it, like Sony and Microsoft getting together, kind of saying to Google, like, yeah, you're not going to stand a chance. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. We don't know the details of this. Like, that's the thing. There's people out here losing their minds. You have these Xbox fanboys out here being like, oh, PlayStation just lost all their exclusives. Can't wait to play my PlayStation exclusives on my Xbox. Like, I don't know where their head's at. And then you have some PlayStation fans over here, like, panicking, freaking out, thinking that that's what's happening for some reason. And like, it's, people need to calm down and realize that this isn't going to change much, okay? Like, it's really not. All this really does is kind of show that Sony does have a vision for the cloud future, just like Microsoft, just like Google, just like all these other companies. As to, to what extent it is, they haven't revealed that, and I don't think they will, at least not right now. Maybe going into the future, I'm sure they will, just like with Microsoft. Even with Microsoft, we know they're doing xCloud, but we have little details on it. People need to understand that this is just a business thing, man. Like, Sony is going to need this. And by that, I mean they're going to need to be involved in cloud. And I'm glad that they're going with Microsoft because, if I'm being honest, I would rather them go with Microsoft than Google, especially Google. I mean, Amazon would have been okay, but, Microsoft, they are good at what they do when it comes to cloud. I can admit that. There's a lot of things that Microsoft is good at, and this is more like a Microsoft business thing where however Sony plans to integrate this into their cloud streaming service, PlayStation Now, whatever they do in the future, some money will be going to Microsoft that Sony earns, yeah, and that's good for Microsoft, obviously. That's why they would do this. It also makes you question if maybe Sony tried going to Amazon and Amazon said no, possibly. I doubt it, but you never know. Because this is actually a good thing for Microsoft, because it's for Xbox. It's not going to hurt Xbox. I mean, we have to understand that the pieces are already in their place. And this is why I'm just so confused by seeing people freaking out about this, making it seem like, oh my god, it's the end of the console war. No, this kind of has nothing to do with the consoles. And that's why I really don't feel that up on it, because for me this just hurts the consoles. You know what I mean? Maybe this is selfish of me, and I think I'm allowed to be, because I'm a gamer at the end of the day. I don't have stock in Sony as a company. I'm not an employee at Sony, and I know a lot of people think I'm some kind of corporate slave, but I'm not. If I had it my way, I would want Sony to just stay completely out of cloud gaming. Prove to the world that you don't need to do that. You don't need to. Just do what you do. Do what you've been doing. Push, obviously stay digital, but do it the traditional way, man. That's just wishful thinking on my part. Like I said, Sony's not going to do that because they're in a position where, as a company, as a business, they simply can't. And I could be wrong. There's a lot of people who still tell me, MBG, you're crazy, man. The future is cloud. It is cloud. And I know that there's some people who've accepted that. And again, maybe one day, if it ends up actually being the future and it gets to a point where there's no difference between playing, a game through the cloud versus on a console, there's literally no difference, maybe I won't be as harsh on it. But again, the whole ownership thing. So I don't know. It's big news. It's exciting news. It's really interesting. It's great to see Sony and Microsoft can actually come together, and who knows what the implications of this are for other things. I've seen people mentioning crossplay. That's a big thing. Sony allowing Microsoft services on their platform, and then vice versa, Microsoft allowing Sony's. But make no mistake about it, this is just the baby steps of what the future could be, where maybe in the long-term future we could see Microsoft and Sony partner in a much bigger way in the gaming space than we could have ever imagined right now. But as of right now, the PS5 and the next Xbox are still on the horizon. So the console wars, I guess if you want to put it this way, are still on, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean that the competition's still there. Sony's still going to try to sell as many PS5 units as possible, and when it comes to them versus Microsoft in how many units they're going to try to sell, it's still going to be intense. So make no mistake about that. But this is definitely Sony saying, hey, Microsoft, we could use your help. We could have a mutual benefit here. As you heard, they're going to be doing other things with sensors and stuff that's outside of gaming, right? And that's why this is big, and it's a business, it's a company move with Sony and with Microsoft. But man, pretty big news, honestly. Again, I feel like I woke up and I'm a parallel dimension or something. We're what? I think what's just weird about it is just how out of nowhere it is. You would think that maybe this is something at E3 or something, man. But this is just one day you wake up and Sony's just yeah, we're partnering with Microsoft. We're going to utilize their cloud servers for our future cloud endeavors. Kind of crazy. So yeah, sorry this video turned out to be this long. I didn't mean for it to be this long, but man, I've just been thinking about this all day. Couldn't wait to talk about it. And so, yeah, at the end of the day, there's nothing wrong with it. It just depends on where you stand. If you care about cloud gaming, this is huge news for you. If you like cloud gaming and the idea of it, still huge news for you. If you're where I'm sitting and you're just I'm not a big fan of cloud gaming, but I understand that, Sony and these other companies are going to pursue it, hey, it is what it is. It's very interesting, and I think it's good for Sony, because what would they do if Microsoft said no? You know what I mean? If they think, assuming they already went to Amazon or Google, they would be forced to go to Google, right? They would be forced to go to Amazon, or maybe they wouldn't do anything at all. But I don't know. I don't really care about cloud gaming. That's why I haven't talked about PlayStation Now at all. It's why I haven't used it. It's why I don't really talk about xCloud. But I think it could be cool as an option, and I think Sony is definitely not going to let Microsoft and Google pursue this on their own. I think that today's news is very much evidence of that. But yeah, alright guys, I'm going to end the video here because I'm really starting to ramble. Let me know your thoughts about this down in the comments below. I will be very interested to see what you guys have to say. Be sure you leave this video a like if you did enjoy it, if you enjoy my content. Really helps it out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Hit the bell notification icon and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.